Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's Tech Tuesday Back to Basics General Ledger. This is the second in our new series of Tech Tuesdays. Last time Sue talked about features in the Library Master module. If you missed that, please go to our website, download either the handout or watch the video or do both. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. You are all on mute. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat pane. Sue will be reviewing and answering those questions as they come in. If you need to drop off early, no problem. We're recording this session and have a handout as always. Both will be available on our website, and then you can also get to the video on our YouTube channel. Let's get started. Okay, so we are going to begin our General Ledger review in the setup. So General Ledger, setup, and then we're going to go to General Ledger options. Now you can see there's 4 tabs of options. We're not going to go through all of those. We're just going to hit the highlights, as they say. So here on the main tab, under Accounts, you have Auto Create when all segments are valid. So your options are yes, meaning if you have a 10-digit account number and you enter 10 digits that aren't currently set up, it is going to set up that as an account number. No, meaning if you enter something wrong, it's just going to complain to you and you'll have to re-enter. Or what I have selected is prompt, meaning if I have a 10-digit account number and I enter 10 digits that are not currently set up as an account, it will prompt me and say, do you want to set this up? The next thing we want to look at is in the fiscal period area here. So my current fiscal year is set to 2019. My current period is set to 5. This is the current processing, period for your General Ledger. It only applies to the General Ledger. We encourage you to close your period, so do month-end processing, do year-end processing, because you can always come back in and reopen a prior period. So if it's March of 2019 and you need to go post 2018 adjustments that your CPA gave you, you can reopen that December of 2018 period, post your adjustments, and then reopen back to whatever your current period is. And then lastly, on the main tab, we want to look miscellaneous. So years to retain General Ledger history. This is the number of years current plus how many years worth of history do you want to retain. So ours is set to 10, so that means I have the current and 9 prior periods. So next we're going to move to the Entry tab and look at a couple of things here. The first thing we want to talk about is batch processing. So you can enable batch processing for general journal entries and transaction journal entries. Now, if you're the only one that's ever in the General Ledger, you don't need to enable batch processing. But if you are not the only person that can make journal entries, then you want to go ahead and enable batch processing. That way, you don't accidentally post someone else's journals. They don't accidentally post yours. So that's an important feature. The next couple of things we want to look at on here, reset journal numbers during. So you have reset journal numbers and reset register numbers. Mine is set to never reset. The other options are period end and year end. And what that would mean is if I reset during period end, it means every time I run a period end, it's going to reset my journal back to 1, or if I pick year end, it's going to reset it when I do year end processing. And then lastly, we want to look at this checkbox here that says Track Deleted Journals. We recommend that you uncheck this box. If you leave it checked, That means that journal entry numbers are tracked if deleted through the general ledger data entry. Unless you have some requirement for keeping track of journals that you delete, we would recommend that you just turn that off and check that box. Okay? So I think that's probably enough for general ledger options. So I'm going to click accept, and we're going to move to account structure maintenance. So again, general ledger setup, account structure maintenance. Now, as you can see, my account has 3 segments. It has a main account and 2 sub-accounts. So important to note, the main account is always the first segment, and then you can have sub-accounts. Now, the total number of characters, excluding your separators, is 32. So your account number can be 32 alphanumeric characters. And like I said, the first segment is always the main account. The main account can be from 3 to 15 characters, and then the remaining segments, so you can have a total of 10 segments. So the remaining 9 segments can have between 2 to 10, can have between 1 and 15 characters. So you want to be really careful when you set up your account numbers to be sure that the number of characters that you're using and the number of segments that you're creating is going to be meaningful when you start generating reports. So, for example, from time to time, we have somebody come in and they say, my main account is only 3 digits long and I'm running out of numbers. I want to expand my main account number. Is that possible? And we would surely tell you, yes, that is possible. A couple of caveats. We always recommend that if you're going to change the length of your account number, that you do that in a test database first, see what the ramifications are. So let's say, for example, you want to expand your main account number and you decide, well, I think I'm going to go to 6 digits. Well, if you do that in a test company and you find that the last 2 digits are always zeros, then maybe you really only need a 4-digit main account number. So the reason that we always recommend that you do these things in a test company is a segment can be made larger but cannot be made smaller. Segments can be added but cannot be removed. So if I think that maybe I need to add I have department, I have location, and maybe I think I need to add floor, the floor in my building, and I decide, that's really a little bit too much. If I do that in a test company, I'm okay because I can just say, oops, don't really mean to do that. If I do it in my live company, then now I've got 2 additional digits or however many additional digits I make that segment to type in during data entry. You can change your segments from numeric to alphanumeric, but you can't change them back. Okay. So I think that's enough about account structures. Now we want to move to journal entries. So under General Ledger, Main, we are going to talk about general journals, recurring journals, and transaction journals. So the first thing we want to look at is our general journal entry. So if we click General Journal Entry, that opens my entry screen. In the source field, I can either use the magnifying glass and I can select a journal. I'm going to do General Journal. Or if I had some journal entries that I had already started, I'd want to use the flashlight here, and that would give me a list of all my journals that had been started but not updated. Or if I know what the 2-digit source journal is, I can just type that in. And then I'm going to use the next entry number. And then my posting date defaults to today. So I'm going to move this back. Since my processing period is May, I'm going to move this back to May. Now, if this is an accrual entry, I could enter a reversing date, but I don't need to do that. And then in my journal comment, I usually want to enter a journal comment because that helps me when I'm doing the journal entry. That comment will carry over to my lines. So I'm going to say utilities. Oh, goodness. Okay, so this is going to be a utilities allocation. So when I get my utility bills in, they all are recorded to one general ledger account, and then I move them out to my individual departments. So as you can see, when I click on the Lines tab, I have account number and then my debit, my credit, and because I put in that journal comment, it's going to carry over here to my lines. So let's just enter a few accounts. So these are my departmental utilities accounts. And then my offset is going to be that account where I originally recorded my utilities. Okay, and although it's light, you can tell my debits equal my credits and I don't have a balance. So that means that I've done everything I need to do. So I could accept this and print my journal and update. But I realize, every month I'm going to be doing this same kind of an allocation, although the amounts are going to be different because, just like at home, our utilities fluctuate each month. So I'd like to create a standard journal entry. A standard journal entry allows me to save these account numbers without amounts so that next month I don't have to re-enter the account. So now I only have 5. That doesn't take that long. But what if I had 25 departments? A standard journal entry could save me a lot of time. So in order to save this as a standard journal entry, I'm going to click the Save Standard button. Now, it is going to always be the same source journal as the one I used, and then I can give it a standard journal number. So I'm going to give it I'm going to say that all the things that start in 9, because it'd be a long time before I'd get there. And I'm going to give it a description. So monthly utilities allocation. And the save box is automatically checked. So now I click the Accept button. And so my standard journal is now saved. So I can go ahead and accept this and print and print my journal. Okay, and the nice thing about having 2 screens is things pop up on your other screen. So here's my, we're paperless, so here's my paperless copy of my journal. And I'm going to close that, and yes, I want to update. So now, let's say it's the next processing month, and I want to actually use that standard journal. So I come back to General Journal Entry. I enter my source journal or use the lookup. And now you see I have this button after I do next entry number. Now I have a copy from button. So if I do copy from, I have a standard journal. I can also copy from journal history or from an allocation. but we're using our standard journal. So once I say I want to copy from, it would give me a list of all the standard journals I've created with the source journal of JE. And then I'm going to give it my period end date. And the journal comment automatically fills in. And when I click the Lines tab, you can see my accounts are already completed. I just don't have an amount. So now all I have to do is come in and enter the amounts for this month. So we'll just enter some. And then we'll enter our offset. And I'm in balance, so I can accept and print. And that's going to generate my paperless document, which I will close and update. Okay. So that's general journal entries and standard journal entries. Next, let's look at transaction journal entries. So transaction journal entries are nice. They are used for the definition is rapid batch entry and posting transactions such as cash disbursements, bank transfers, and cash receipts. Now, if you have the AR or the AP module, you wouldn't need to do cash disbursements and cash receipts. But let's say you have a sweep account, you could certainly do bank transfers. But just for demonstration purposes, we're going to do a cash disbursement journal. So in a transaction journal, you have an offset account. So for example, if I say I'm going to do a cash disbursement journal, and I get my next journal number, now you see I have this format button highlighted. Okay. So in here, source journal, cash disbursements, and here's my offset account. Now, I could select another account if this is not correct, but I'm going to keep this. It gives me my description from my, general ledger account number, and it says that the offset is going to be a credit, and that's what I want. So if I'm entering cash disbursements, I'm going to debit expense accounts and credit my bank account. And then here under line options, you can do adjustment, bank transfer, check number, deposit, or document reference. I want to do check number, and here it says to auto increment the check number, and during entry we'll see what that does for us. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to change my date. And I'm going to go to the Lines tab. So you can see during data entry, I have a check number field where I can enter my check number. So I'm going to start, so let's say, here's my first check number, here's my date, and then I'm going to pick an account number. And then I can do a journal comment if I want. Just for time purposes, I'm not going to enter one. We'll enter a few more lines. And you can see, because, let me move my cursor out of the way, I said I wanted to auto increment the check number. Every time I do an entry and I come to the next line, it gives me a new check number. So that saves me time if my checks are in order. Now, if my checks aren't in order, then, I wouldn't want to use that, but they are, and it saves me a couple of keystrokes. Okay, so when I get through, unlike the general journal or the standard journal, I don't have a total debits and credits, I just have a total. So if I have a document that I'm going to compare back to, I'd say, yes, I've entered the correct amount. I would click accept, and then I would print. And so now I'm going to print my transaction journal. And here we go. And the great thing about this is the journal that's going to post back into bank reconciliation. So all of these checks would show in my bank rec module. So when it comes time to reconcile my bank account, I don't have to re-enter them like I would if I'd used a general journal entry or a standard journal entry. So nice feature, keeps you from doing double duty. Okay, and yes, I want to update the transaction journal. Okay. Now, at any time, if I print my journal and I find that I've got an error, when it comes time to when it comes to saying, do you want to update the journal, then I would click no. I can always go back and make any edits. So in any of the kind of journal entries that we are looking at, whether it be, general journal or transaction journal, if I look at my my register and I find that I've made an error, no, I don't want to update, go back and make it the changes, and then reprint your journal, and then when you're ready, do the update. Okay. So the last kind of journal entry we're going to look at is a recurring journal entry. So I'm going to click recurring journal entry. So the first thing you do is you set up the recurring journal entry. These are entries that you're going to repeat each month. Unlike the standard journal entry, these also include amounts. So I would use a recurring journal entry for depreciation expense. Okay. So if I don't know what my journal is, I'm going to do my lookup, and I just so happen to have a source journal with a description of recurring journal. So I'm going to use that one, and then I'm going to give it a reference. So you can see, unlike other journals where you use the next entry number, this one you give a reference to. So I'm going to do just something that you get 6 characters, so you got to give it something meaningful. And then I'm going to complete. So cycle. So I'm going to say M for monthly, and then start and stop date. Now, normally if this was depreciation, I would be setting this up at the beginning of the year. So my start date would be January 1st, and my ending date, I'm going to put the end of the month because I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to actually be entering that. I could put January 31st through December 31st and always generate it on the 31st. So this is going to be monthly depreciation expense, and I can say for 2019. Okay. When I click accept, that takes me to the lines tab. And I can enter my my depreciation. So and again, my journal comment carries forward. And we'll do one more. And then my offset is going to be to my accumulated depreciation account. And about 2,000. There we go. Okay. So again, debits equal credits, no balance. So I know this is going to post. So I'm going to click the accept button. Now, unlike the other journals entries that we looked at, this does not pop up and say, do you want to print? So I'm going to close out of here. So when I'm ready to process my recurring journal entries, that's when I come in here and click recurring journal. And I'm going to go ahead and change this. Now, we all know that I should have come in here and changed my posting date to be 5/31, but what the heck, just a few extra keystrokes. So I'm going to click print, and when I click print, it brings up my recurring journal selection. So I want M for monthly. I'm sorry, source journal. Let me look at what I'm doing. Source journal is equal to GL, that's my recurring journal, and M for monthly. And I don't need a reference number. So I'm going to click proceed. And that's going to generate that journal entry for my posting date of May. And then I'm going to close that. And yes, I want to update. Okay. So then next month I put in June 30th. I click recurring, after I click recurring journal, and then, same thing, GLM, I get that same entry for June. Now I did it just for a year because normally your depreciation expense changes from year to year. So I wouldn't want to have that as like never ending. Okay. So now we're going to look at a really great feature that I'm not sure if a lot of you are aware of, and that is there is a utility that will reverse a journal entry. So, if you've ever entered or imported, thousands of transactions and find out that, oops, not what I intended, didn't mean to do that, there is a way with the one click to be able to create a reversing journal entry. Now, you have to be in account maintenance. This does not work in account inquiry. Again, inquiry is just a look, doesn't give you the ability to update. So you want to be in account maintenance. And I think that on that monthly allocation for utilities, I think I did that twice in May. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at one of those expense accounts. Now, if I don't know what the account number is, I can always use my magnifying glass to look it up, but I think this is one of my accounts. I'm going to come over here and look at my transactions. I'm going to scroll until I get to May, and I see, indeed, I do have two journals for the utilities allocation. So I'm going to highlight the second one, and you see when I do that, I have a new button on the side, and that is the journal reversal. So when I click this button, it says the reversal is complete. Review the entry in general journal entry before updating. So just because you create a reversing entry, don't think that it's going to automatically post it into your general ledger. You still have an opportunity to review and say, yes, this was indeed the entry that I wanted to reverse. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to accept. And then I'm going to come back over here to general journal entry. And I'm going to use the flashlight because it told me that it created a general journal entry, and here it is. Entry 31, reversal of journal JE0030. So I'm going to click select. I'm going to change my posting date. And then I'm going to look at it. I can look at it on the lines. So you can see that, debits are now credits, and my credit is now my debit. I'm in total because I was in balance to begin with. And now I can print that. Print, not preview, since we're paperless. And that'll print my my journal I close that and I say, yes, I want to update it. Now when I go back into either account maintenance, or now I can go back into account inquiry and I put in that account number and go to transactions tab, I can see that I've got the reversal. So here's my credit and here's my debit. Okay. So that brings us to the end of our time. I think I went a little bit over, hopefully not too much. I hope Sue's taking care of all your questions. I don't see anything remaining. So we're going to end today. Again, this will be posted on our website as soon as it's ready. So, but if you have any questions, let me give you our contact information. So we'll show that. Gives you both our email address and our direct line. So these are our direct lines. You don't have to go through the switchboard, and then our email addresses. So feel free to give us a call with any questions on things that we've shown today or any other questions you may have. So thanks for joining us. Look forward to the next email on our next Tech Tuesday. Have a great day.